Welcome to Dimensions of Homeopathy. Today I have in my interview Harry van der Zee from Holland. He is. And I'm very happy to have him here. He's been a homeopathic physician for more than 40 years, or nearly 40 years, I think. And he was for a long time responsible for one of the leading homeopathic journals, Homeopathic Links. And since over 20 years, he's been actively engaged in Africa. And he provides homeopathic treatment and prevention of epidemics there to a lot of people. We will hear about that in a minute. And he has also co-founded the Amma Resonance Healing Foundation, which reaches over 1 million people across Africa. So welcome, Harry. I'm really happy to have you in the interview.
Oh, thank you very much, Andra. Andra, lovely to meet you and your audience, which I regretfully can't see, but...
Yes, they will see you. Well. That's always when we record interviews. That's unfortunately like that. Okay, you're one of the rare people who are not just talking about healing or healing one by one in your practice, but what you have built in Africa is like the living proof of resilience, and resilience is the topic of our summit. So I'm really curious to hear about what exactly are you doing there? What is your work in Africa?
That work started with Peter Chappell, the late Peter Chappell. He passed away in 2023, actually, on Boxing Day, which is in England or in the English-speaking countries, a day in which you do gifts to others. And so his life has been a gift, especially to Africa. So Peter went to Africa in 2001 to see whether homeopathy had anything to offer for HIV/AIDS. And in those days in Africa, there was just no treatment available. So people were just dying of what they called slimming disease. No one wanted to know what it was. And so he went to Addis Ababa in Ethiopia and started to take cases and treated them based on their symptoms. So pulsatilla to one, lycopodium to another, etc. Had reasonably good results. He estimated something like 70-80% of the people would be improving. But he realized this is not an individual condition. It's like an epidemic, meaning that you can use the genus epidemicus approach that Hahnemann already used, where you can take many cases together as if one person, and then look for a remedy or a set of remedies that would cover that symptom totality. So he took some, I believe, 70 cases together. And around the time there was already email, because I remember receiving a message from him also about this, like, this is what I'm observing here. And I want one remedy that covers it all. Because realizing that there were about 28 million people HIV positive in Africa, hardly no homeopath to treat them, he realized he needed the most simple and effective way of reaching as many people as possible. Now, if you have a genus epidemicus consisting of 10 or 20 or 30 remedies, you still need a lot of skills to find the right one. So he wanted just one remedy covering it all and couldn't find it, and asked others with ideas, couldn't find it either. Tried the AIDS nosode and saw some nasty response in some cases, and so he was very reluctant in using that. And then somehow the idea emerged to ask for it. Now, to ask for it to whom? To what? Peter had done shamanic work in decades before. And during that work, he had met what he called a benign, intelligent being, not embodied being, and somehow was always aware of this, what he called presence, intelligent presence. And just the idea came up in him to ask So he just placed a bottle of water in front of him. At least I wasn't there, but this is how I picture it. And ask, this is the genus epidemicus, the symptom totality of HIV/AIDS in Africa. Please create a simillimum in this bottle for this condition. He had no idea whether that would work. He just left the bottle for a while, then started using it to prepare bottles for patients, and then had to wait and see what would happen. And so to his great joy and probably even amazement, patients came back and were doing just extraordinarily well. All of them, basically. And I would still say I've been working with this remedy now for almost a quarter century. If we say 95% effective, I think we're modest. Yeah, so it's very effective. So that's how it started with Peter. And then not much later, there was a homeopathic conference in Holland where not only he was reporting some cases, and that's great, symptoms improved, interesting, wonderful. But there was this one case that was presented there. It was like a conference case for everyone to watch. And it was an extraordinary case, and still perhaps the most extraordinary case I've ever witnessed. This was the case of a patient who was suicidally depressed. And his homeopath had given him all sorts of homeopathic remedies and nothing worked. As the man was also gay and HIV positive, he thought, if I can't treat his depression, let me give him a remedy for HIV/AIDS. As Corey Hiwat and I in Homeopathic Links, we had already published an article by Peter about his first experiences. So he had read about this and gave this remedy to this patient. And luckily, he had videos of all the consultations with this man. So from before and taking this remedy that Peter had just called PC1, Peter Chapel 1. You had to find a name. And you can't put an indication on a label, so PC1. This man who initially felt he couldn't believe anyone would ever love him was weepingly telling how he loved everyone, everything. And I've later been in contact with him, even years later, and this condition, this total transformation lasted for a long, long time. And when I saw that case presented, I was like struck by lightning. And it wasn't even a thinking process. It was just like a seeing of what this meant. If you kind of cut it in pieces, you could say HIV/AIDS is being transmitted in sexual relationships. If relationships are built on mutual respect, on mutual care, on true love, you don't infect each other. You just test first, you check, you ask. In that sense, the AIDS epidemic is a very simple one. It's easy to avoid. So I realized that watching this case where this man had this huge transformation on the level of love, of self-love also, that this remedy somehow must go to the root of what HIV/AIDS is about. Not only treating the symptoms, which is wonderful, people are happy with that, but if it goes to the root of it, then it touches the very root of this epidemic and why it is in existence. And so that's how I got involved, because I wanted to go to Africa and just see with my own eyes. And together with Corey Hiwat, we went to Malawi. We interviewed patients that had been treated, some 8 or 10 months before. And case after case, we could see their files. We could see the symptoms before, after. one after the other had responded beautifully. And so that's when I got involved in this and ultimately started the foundation for this.
Beautiful. It's such an important work. I'm really, very touched that you're doing this and what kind of successes you have. And yes, you reach over 1 million people a year, but you
Not
also,
me, huh?
yes,
Not
not you
me.
personally.
No, I'm here in Holland. I'm in the garden, beautiful.
Yeah.
But I've been to Africa several times,
Yeah.
and some others have joined me in the work. And so there's now a whole network of African volunteers that we have been trained and supplied with the remedies, and they do this work. Spread over some 14 countries now, and reaching more than 1 million people indeed, not only for HIV/AIDS, but a lot more actually for preventing malaria, because
Yeah.
we've come to understand that that is basically the biggest miasm, if you like, that is keeping Africa down. Yeah.
And you have some kind of numbers. I've read about a study you did also in those countries about the effectiveness. So do you know, like you said, more than 95%, that 95% is modest, that you're helping people who are sick already, who are diseased already. But you have like, based on the population or some, how many people you can help with these remedies?
Well, basically, you could treat all the AIDS patients that are around, but you need a much larger network for that. But we've done a study in Kenya in 2017, 18, in that period, where we could prescribe in 3 governmental AIDS clinics. And so 100 people were put on the regular antiretroviral drugs. 100 people were put on this remedy PC1, and 100 people would get both. And so we could gather the clinical data of these patients, all the blood tests also, and CD4 count for measuring the immunity, and the viral load for measuring HIV/AIDS itself. And so what we found is that this remedy PC1 outperformed the regular treatment for AIDS on all parameters. And in between those two was when you combined it. The regular AIDS treatment, you can compare a bit with like having a chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So it's heavy for the body to take. And it has saved a lot of lives, but it's also quite heavy for the body to take. And if you add PC1 to it, then patients evolve more rapidly and have less side effects and are doing well.
Okay, I understand. So there are very hard facts that prove that these remedies are working. And I don't doubt what you have seen, Peter has seen, but some other people might doubt. Now, how should I put it? In Europe, the PC remedies are not very well known. I tested some of them for infertility or diabetes, and I didn't have such great results, to be honest. And I don't want to criticize the remedies at all, but I've heard that from several homeopaths and voices that they seem to work very well in Africa, and they seem not to work so well maybe in these conditions, which would be one part of my questions. But maybe it's also our minds as homeopaths that we are, like non-believers or something, or that we are too much stuck into our conventional way of thinking, or maybe also that the Europeans are not so receptive, that they are like not so fine in their energies, that they are more material and need more material remedies. What do you think?
It's probably a mix of all these things. But one thing is I believe that as Europeans, and not only Europeans, Americans, Canadians, Australians, we are much more focused on the mind. We live in the attic up here, basically. And for Africans, that's a different situation. We've even seen that a few cases that did not respond as well as we are used to see in Africa were people that had studied abroad and came back to Africa. So somehow this Western mindset that we have and that we kind of impose on people that, like that's the standard in the world, huh? That seems to be involved here. And another thing that may be connected to it is that we are much more individualized than people living in rural cultures. That's not only in Africa. Even I remember, like when I was trained as a homeopath, it was more simple to treat patients from rural areas, like in Holland or in Belgium, than in cities. The same you can see in countries like India. So where people are living more in a rural setting, homeopathy in general is more simple, and it's more easy to find remedies. And apparently also there's a broader scope, a broader range wherein a remedy would still work for someone. Whereas in our highly individualized society, we have to become like Swiss watchmakers and find the exactly right little thing to turn on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be the case, probably. And I also think, there's one a German homeopath, he's called Heinrich Zeden. He has now a very widespread way of administering homeopathic remedies. He doesn't give them as globules or pills anymore. He just makes like that and says the name of the remedy, and that's working. And he's having great results with that. And I remember that when my child was very small, a baby still, she got a fever, and she was laying next to me, and I was too tired to stand up, and I just said aconite, aconite, because it was so clear, because it was so sudden. And the fever went down like that, she was just cooling down like that. It was so crazy. And I think maybe that we have to somehow, if we would be able to open our minds as homeopaths and not as the patients being treated, that then also these remedies could work better in our parts of the world.
It could be part of it, because you have this triangle of the patient, the homeopath, and the remedy, and all three are relevant in a treatment and for a treatment to be successful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But we very soon recognized that the results are not the same in the West as they are in Africa. But that doesn't mean that you can't use them in a useful way, let's say as a complement in a treatment. So a simple approach for me would be, if you would have, like you mentioned, like diabetes.
Yeah.
If a diabetes patient comes to you and it's very clear what the individual remedy is, go for it and just do that. If it's enough, great. If it's improving, but not totally, then you can say, okay, let's add this and see what happens. Or the other way around, if it's not very clear what the remedy is, and it's not always that clear, is it? Then you can say, okay, let me start with the one specific for the condition, observe what's happening, and any changes that are happening might point you more to what is needed on a more individual level for that patient.
Okay, and about the PC remedies, a little bit more detail. Do you have different potencies also of the remedies, or do you just use one potency because it's information anyway? If it's minimum, maybe it's also the minimum potency. What is the...
Yeah, potentization we need to kind of extract the essence, you could say, from a material source. Here, there's no material source involved. So the essence is, as it were, directly imprinted in water or even in sound, something that Peter also worked on. So potentization is not necessary.
Okay. And how often do you give these remedies? For example, if you have a malaria patient who is doing very bad, Do you give them very often or just
It's
like
very similar to working with regular homeopathic remedies. So in acute cases, you repeat more often. In chronic cases, you may do it on a daily basis. If like it's a condition where you want to kind of be careful a bit, you can say, okay, take it once, observe. Then when you feel okay, take another dose, and then gradually go to a regular, usually daily dose. It's very similar to using regular homeopathic remedies.
I think there are a lot of people out there who are, having hope for their own healing. We just published a film about cancer. And do you have experience with cancer and PC remedies in Europe also? Because this is like the disease of our days. I mean, there are more people dying from cancer than from anything else.
Yeah, very limited experience, let me say like that, and not enough to kind of draw any trustworthy conclusions on. What I've definitely seen is that they can help to tackle the side effects of chemotherapy. So that's definitely something that can work. And in Africa, I know they've been used for cancer cases where I was kind of amazed that patients got totally better on just a homeopathic remedy and nothing else.
Beautiful. That's so great. I will move to Africa.
Become an African. Yeah.
Yes, I don't think that that's possible, but maybe some influence, become a little bit more open, maybe also. Okay, so if people are interested now, you have PC remedies for all different kinds of conditions, right?
There are hundreds of them. Yeah. In Africa, we work with what we call a basic kit. So for medically trained people, we have a kit of 36 remedies that we train them how to use that, and we have a manual for that. And people that are lay people but are willing to kind of help, they make like malaria prevention available, injuries, perhaps hypertension, things like that they can do without any medical knowledge on a free basis. But malaria prevention is the main target that our teams are working at.
Okay.
And so we've done a study for that as well. And the results were just stunning, better than I had hoped. What we found is that, and we did it on a large scale over a period of 5-6 years in one of the major cities in the Congo. And they put about 74,000 people on malaria prevention with this remedy, PC 240M. And so what we found is that for every dollar that was invested in malaria prevention to the population, the local hospitals saved $40.
Wow.
Because there were less treatments necessary. And then we didn't calculate the loss of lives, the economic loss of lives, the funerals that you would otherwise have to pay for, and because it saved also hundreds of deaths based on the statistics that we could do. And what malaria, and like I already said, like malaria is as we came to understand the biggest issue in Africa. Malaria, as we know it already from Hahnemann, the malaria miasm has a lot to do with having lots of plans at night in the dark, and then during the day, frustrations and feeling hindered and not being able to kind of fulfill your dreams. So malaria has a lot to do with that. And so by making this available, especially to children, we do this through schools mostly, but also door to door and in clinics and outreaches. What we see is that when you make this available to a school, that there are schools where children miss out like 1/5 of their school time because they're just regularly ill. And the remaining time they're recovering. So they underperform at school, and are then not allowed to secondary school. And so we followed up several schools, dozens actually. And what we could see is that the absenteeism goes down to just like 1 or 2%, instead of being like 10 or 20, or we've even had schools of 30, 40% of absenteeism throughout the year. I mean, crazy numbers. Going down to like a normal 1 or 2%. School results going up, and many most children admitted to secondary school, meaning that instead of having to start working in the field at 11, 12 years old, they can go on and educate themselves and hopefully get out of this poverty trap that their parents are in.
Which will help them, like the whole country or the whole continent, even if it's going to be more widespread.
Yes, well, what I believe is that once we reach a kind of critical number, that it will influence the collective beyond the only individuals that you give it to.
Yes, I think, yeah, probably, yeah, you're right. So the whole development, or whatever you call it, the maybe something can be repaired again in Africa that even Europe was a lot responsible for destroying, and taking all the resources and enslaving people for hundreds of years. And so
Yeah.
finally we might be able to give something back. So what do you need, Harry, for your foundation? So how can you go on spreading the word, spreading the information, go on with your work? What is needed truly?
What do we need? We very much welcome people with an open mind and an open heart to help in any way that feels right for them. And whether that means getting involved and helping out with projects in Africa and training people, or going back to them to start new projects in countries that you happen to know or are interested in. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here. We have a website. We're now translating it into Portuguese. Fundraising is a big issue, even though our teams make malaria prevention available per child per year for just 7 cents per child. It's incredibly cost effective, but to reach another million, we will need 150,000 euros or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not a good calculation, but a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And what we have found is that applying for funds with anything that reeks after homeopathy is a very frustrating thing. It's how to enter the malaria miasm for sure.
I can imagine. And in general, that's what one more question I had in my mind is, how do people, how does mainstream medicine or politics or something, all these institutions react in Africa to your work? Do you have, like favorable conditions, or is it difficult like here?
It differs a lot. So initially, when I had gone to Africa, had seen the results, I went to Peter and said, "Let me help you." And what I did is talk to ministries of health, to universities in Africa, and all of that. And whatever we tried to do there, we always ran into a wall. Whereas on the local level, in the rural areas, it was just welcomed. And people love to have something, because otherwise they had nothing. So, and also I consulted someone with like 40 years of experience in working in Africa and doing all sorts of projects. And he said, you should consider yourself a guerrilla organization. Stay away from the capitals, build up your network, and at some point they can't stop you from what's happening, because it's then in the hands of the people.
Yeah.
And I remember a politician in Kenya at some point saying that when he visited the village and saw what was going on, and he said, no one can take this away from you anymore. And I hope that's true, and until now that is true. But we do research and collect data, And gradually, of course, the interest from different levels is coming. You start in a
Mm.
village, and then there's a city next to it, and so gradually, we will also reach governmental levels. And like next year, or perhaps even this year, we hope to start a study for sickle cell anemia, which is a horrible condition for children and their parents to witness. And we are getting official permission from the government to do a study like this. So once we have the funds for it, also, then we can move ahead.
You can
And
start.
once you have a study done like that, then that opens doors again in different
Mm.
places. And so we build it up step by step,
So we are
bottom up.
called Friends for a Better World, and all these people out there who are listening now, you are also a friend for a better world. We will put the donation link under the video, and please click on the link. And even if you give, you just heard it, 7 cents per year. Even if you give just €1 or 20 euro or 10 euros, it will help a lot of people in Africa. So just open up your
Yeah,
heart, click on the link, and
yeah,
do your
that would be very welcome. And it's also possible to turn it into a regular one, even if you give
yeah.
a small amount every month or something, because it gives us a trustworthy stream of funds. Because every time we start a new activity, we want to make sure that it can continue. So
Mm.
you need to have like some solidity in our funds. Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure this money is well spent, much better than whatever your next coffee that you pay or your next car that you buy or however big the money
Yeah,
is you can give. It's no matter what. This is
you
just
read my mind because I was going to say for a cup of coffee you help 24 children or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, to
Yeah.
survive and also their families to sustain their families and all this help stays
Oh
there.
yeah. Yeah.
That should be really an easy thing to do, to click on the link and give some money or do a regular donation. I hope everybody is doing this now. So, how do you see, Harry, the future in Africa? What are, you just said sickle cell anemia, what are other big challenges that people are facing? How do you think the work will proceed, like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years?
Mm.
I
You
know
want me to dream?
Yeah, I want you to dream because from
To dream.
dreams,
Okay.
Peter had a dream when he started this,
Yeah.
and now the dream is going on. So let's dream a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if it continues like it does now, and it expands like it does now, meaning that on a yearly basis it grows like 15-20%, then we start to be reaching indeed millions of people. And then it might come at the moment where governments start to pick up and other organizations start to use the same protocols because the protocols are there. The remedies can be made very easily. What does it cost to create a homeopathic remedy?
Mm.
Basically nothing. So ideally, we hope many more people will find help, not only for preventing malaria, treating HIV/AIDS, but also for treating trauma. It's one of the big focal points of our teams also, because you have to kind of break this chain where one generation of traumatized people traumatizes others, and it continues like that. Yeah. And that Africa will more and more be able to kind of do this by themselves. Although it started with Peter and it started with this foundation here in Holland, our aim is that as much as Africa can do itself, the better it is. We don't want to be Dr. Schweitzers and spend our lives in Africa and be the big white man helping the poor black person. I mean, that's a belief that is just not true. There's a lot of capacity and intelligence and love and open minds and hearts in Africa themselves. Otherwise, these networks wouldn't be working. These are all people doing this as a volunteer. So the capacity is there. And yeah.
And you also have special trauma remedies, PC remedies for different kinds of trauma?
Yeah, like war trauma, the trauma of rape, the trauma of natural catastrophes. These have been used in thousands and thousands of cases and work beautifully. On our website, you find several videos also on trauma, showing the results of that. It's actually one of the most heartbreaking experiences I had myself by treating traumatized women in the Congo, where, if you summarize it, it's like rebels or soldiers come, kill their husband, burn their hut, rape them and mutilate them, take their children with them to work as prostitutes or as child soldiers, and then these women are being kicked out of the village where they used to live. I treated some of these women, and our teams there keep treating these women. And after a couple of months, one of them said, "I am no longer a slave of the past." If someone with such a history and such a trauma can state, "I am no longer a slave of the past," then what about us with the little things that we are concerned about? The little hurts we get and the little whatever lack we feel. So yeah, that's trauma treatment is very rewarding and very beautiful, and one of the main things that our teams do.
Okay. I think this might be, even because we were talking about the future, this might be even one of the most important parts, because we all had war in Europe, in Germany, and everybody 3 generations ago is somehow traumatized in
Yes.
Central Europe, in France, in Holland, in Germany, in Poland. All these countries, they are still suffering from that. And in Africa, I guess it's been really, really, it is really, really important to give relief to the continent. And
Yeah,
we have
but
much
indeed
more
also
resources
here.
to afford, we have resources to afford psychotherapists and things like that. But there's nobody who can help them. There's just, and I think this might be even more important. This is just my guess.
Well, it is very important because the trauma kind of influences the immune system, influences the expression of DNA, and is at the root of many conditions. So, yeah, definitely very important to treat trauma. And you mentioned the trauma of the war here also in Europe. I remember that at some point, and we also have these remedies based on sound. It's one of those amazing inventions of Peter to say, like, okay, if we can imprint water with that information, could we also imprint sound with it? So when the October 7 assault happened in Israel, where at this festival so many people were killed, so there were homeopaths and others going there to help the traumatized people, but they got heavily traumatized themselves. And so we made this audio available to them, and it worked beautifully for them. I remember this one case where there was this I believe it was a lady who had been treating traumatized people, and at home she was just unable to sleep. She was totally traumatized, and she heard that the remedy was available as a sound, and so she called up an Israeli homeopath who had it, and so he sent it to her. And it was like, it's a 3 minutes audio. Halfway the audio, she fell asleep. It was gone.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Is it possible to somehow purchase this sound file, or also the PC remedies for sure? Do you have the website? You can give me the link. We will put it under the video.
Yeah, the PC remedies, they can be ordered at the Haneman Apotheek
Okay.
like in German, Apotheke,
Mm-hmm.
Apotheek, Hahnemann Apotheek in Holland,
Mm-hmm.
who has all of them available.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be ordered at Helios in London.
Yes, it's difficult now in Europe, but
Um, they send it from Ireland, I believe. So they've kind of circumvented that, and yeah. And the audios, some of them we have made freely available on our website for
okay.
war trauma, for natural catastrophes, and several ones related to COVID and COVID vaccines. Those can be just downloaded for free or listened to on our website,
Mm-hmm.
which is arhf.ngo.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a website that is not being run by us, but it's available for homeopath, called sourcemedicine.zone.
Mm-hmm.
Sourcemedicine.zone. And there's a long list of audios. Not all homeopathic or not all PC remedies are also available as audio, and not all audios are also available as oral remedies, but together they cover a lot of conditions.
Beautiful, great. I will just ask you for the links later and we will put them under the interview so everybody can listen to that. Everybody can send it to some traumatized people, to people who need it, or even if they have COVID vaccine problems or COVID problems post COVID, there are so many still. You might be able to use it and maybe it does you good. So just try it out and
Yeah, and we'd love to hear the feedback also.
yeah. Okay, we will ask for feedback. We will have a comment section under the interview, and I will send you an email, and I invite you to read that. Maybe you have to copy it and translate it to English, but there will be a lot of people commenting and asking you questions and things like that.
Okay,
So
that's
put
good.
a comment what your experience is if you tried the sounds, and Harry can see them then after. Okay, Harry, so thank you so much. I don't have any more questions. Do you have anything else that you want to tell the people or give to the world? You're giving so much anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is a lot to tell. And it's just amazingly beautiful work that's being done. There's one thing that is interesting, I think, for the people to know about, and it's a program called LEAP.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Learning Enhancement Africa Program,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being made available to schools.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short piece of music, just like, I don't know, 2 minutes. They play it in a speaker in the schools, and it's just amazing because it's not just only like preventing malaria when it's being used, but it basically supports the immune system for a whole range of infectious diseases, from malaria to parasites to whatever is present in Africa. It covers a whole range of forms of trauma, and it improves learning skills, memory, concentration, and things like that. And also, this one we have studied in several schools with reduced absenteeism, less hospitalizations, and clearly improved school results. And we're still figuring out how Peter exactly did that, because this was shortly done before his death. But it's an amazing program.
Wonderful. That's so beautiful. I don't have words for that because it really, really touches me that whole classes of people can be helped, of students can be helped with this. So
Yeah, and
just
it's a lot easier than giving oral remedies, because
yeah.
there are several schools still doing that, giving malaria prevention to all the children, child by child, on a regular basis. Whereas this, you have one speaker, you play it for a whole classroom or even for the whole school. Done. It's totally easy and very effective.
Great. I'm very sure I will go this evening. I will go to the internet and I will check out the sounds because I'm very interested in sound healing also. And if you have anybody who is interested in sound healing, interested in, I say, a little bit more energetic remedies than our homeopathic remedies are anyway. And if you have anybody who wants to go to Africa, wants to go there, help or do something here for Harry, just contact him and get the remedies, get the sounds, the sound files, and do a donation for his work because this has to be very widespread and we have so many people listening here. So I hope you're gonna get a lot of donations and a lot of feedbacks.
Lovely.
Okay, Harry, thank you so much for the interview. I'm really, really glad to have done this. It's a friend of Gabi's, who is the founder of this summit, who recommended to do the interview with you. And I was a little bit, yes, he's the editor of Homeopathic Links, and I haven't heard a lot about your work in Africa before. And I'm very happy to have done this because I learned a lot about it. Thank you so much.
Totally my pleasure, Andra. It was lovely to meet you in this way and lovely to meet your audience. And I look forward to any questions or comments or whatever is coming.
Yeah, great. Okay. So see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.